from around the Beltway to around the world. This is the Daily Drum on 96.3 WHUR. Plus, now every Wednesday on WHUT TV, bringing you the information you need that matters most. Better together. Here's Harold Fisher.
Good evening. This is the Daily Drum for Wednesday, September 27th. Here's what's happening. Confirmation hearings are underway right now at the Wilson Building for acting D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith.
While the overwhelming majority of youth in the district have no involvement with crime, when some children as young as 12 are engaging in carjackings and other dangerous crimes, it is clear that the current strategies are not an effective deterrent.
Dozens have already testified before the D.C. Council's Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. If confirmed by the council, Smith would become the first black woman to hold the position. Those hearings come on the same day the city saw a huge jump in the homicide numbers. The number of murder now stands at 209. 5 of those victims dying this year from crime incidents during previous years. Just yesterday, homicides in the district reached 201, including a Dunbar High School student and a 21-year-old man caught in the crossfire of 2 gunmen in moving cars. Well, there's still not a lot of movement on Capitol Hill to avoid a possible government shutdown. With a deadline less than 4 days away, the Senate is working to pass a bill funding the government through November 7th. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said today he does not see GOP support for it. McCarthy is trying to work with the most conservative Republicans who demand more spending cuts. Well, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan will not recuse herself from the Donald Trump 2020 election interference case. That decision coming from the judge a little more than an hour ago. Trump's defense team questioned whether Chutkan could be fair because of past public comments about the former president. Well, the second GOP presidential debate is just hours away. Republican presidential candidates will face off in California at 9 o'clock Eastern. Once again, former President Trump is skipping the event. The party's frontrunner will instead meet with striking United Auto Workers in Michigan. And she was the first black person to be nominated and win an Oscar. But Hattie McDaniel's award, displayed at the Howard University's drama department after her death in 1952, disappeared during the late 1960s. Next month, the Academy of Arts and Science will gift a replacement at the Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts at Howard University. The Hattie's Come Home ceremony will be held at the Ira Aldrich Theater on October 1st. But here's a look at the weather now. Tonight, mostly clear through midnight. Some clouds returning with lows in the low 50s. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies in the morning. Overcast but dry in the afternoon. Highs near 70. Well, coming up, D.C.'s rising crime rate, the looming federal government shutdown, McDonald's Mambo sauce, and more. We're at the Reporters Roundtable. Lines are open. Give us a call. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Insight is next on WHUR and WHUT TV.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contest. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators, focused solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock, and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Going beyond the headlines to the deeper issues. 96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Inside segment, where your questions and comments matter. At 202-319-7810. Join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR, WHUT TV, Sirius XM Channel 141, 96.3 HD2, and 98.3 FM. This is the Inside segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Reporters Roundtable talking about some of the top stories of the week. My guests are Molette Green, anchor reporter for NBC-Washington, and Keith Alexander, reporter for the Washington Post. Lines are open. Give us a call at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. You can X me at HFisher, WHUR, or you can find me on Instagram at Harold T. Fisher. Molette, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And Keith, thank you so much.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's first talk about the unfortunate situation that we are dealing with right now in the District of Columbia. We have right now 209 homicides. The city added 8 more today because of some incidents where victims died. But even just yesterday afternoon, we went from 199 to 201 just within a period of a few hours. And, Molette, I'll start with you. The confirmation hearings for acting police chief Smith they're going on right now. Just, what's the solution? I mean, you've got a crystal ball, I'm sure. How do you see this?
I wish I did have a crystal ball because, Harold, this is heartbreaking. As a journalist, obviously, we have to report on very sad things. As a human being, as a parent, having to talk about this every single day, and it never seems to end, is absolutely just gut-wrenching. And to watch parents talk about their children in the past tense. Kamal Jones, who was just going to get some laundry detergent and getting caught up in crossfire, shot 7 times, going to get laundry detergent so he could wash his clothing for his job, where he had just gotten a promotion. And for 16-year-old Maurice Jackson, shot shortly after leaving Dunbar Senior High School. I went to McKinley Tech High School. We were rivals with Dunbar in basketball. Mm-hmm. And so you have young men in some devastating video, hard-to-watch video that we saw on the news this evening, standing on the street corner, waiting on another group of young men. And a fight breaks out, and then shots are fired. And this young man, 16 years old, Maurice Jackson, you have to say the names, because these are people, and they're not just numbers on a count, is dead. And his father was talking about him on the news. I can't believe that we're in this situation and something has to change. Yes, the acting police chief is trying to get confirmed. It appears she will get confirmed by the council. And who knows if she can bring the answer. Obviously, at her confirmation hearing, she was talking about familiar themes that past chiefs have talked about bringing back, the community policing and such. I don't know what the answer is, Harold, but I know as a mom and I know as a citizen and a native of Washington, something has to change.
Yeah. Keith, this is starting to feel to me like the bad old days of the 80s and 90s.
The crack epidemic.
Right, exactly. But crack is not the problem now. It is just violence. And I will say, after I graduated from college in 1986, I moved back to DC. I lived with my dad in Brookland. And so I was here, and I was really very, very much, I, along with my buddies, we were roommates, all of us, we were very, very aware, acutely aware of how dangerous the city was. Mm-hmm. But it seems that in a lot of cases, it was really kind of isolated.
It was them.
Yeah,
It was
but
it was
it's
those
not
people.
isolated
It's,
now.
And I've been here since '87, as Molette knows. We were classmates together. I came down in '87 to go to Howard from Pittsburgh, and so I've been here since '87. I've been here during those times when I came out my dorm and saw police tape on the regular, yellow police tape, with bodies on the regular coming out of dorms over at Howard in the late '80s. We're not there yet. But when I talked to detectives, one of the things that they mentioned that's different now from then is the type of weaponry. Back then you had regular guns, same type of guns that police officers have. Today they have assault rifles. People are spraying. This the gentleman who was 19-year-old who was charged, and Ariana Davis, the 10-year-old girl, was sitting in the backseat on Mother's Day. 100 rounds, shell casings, over 100 shell casings were found at that scene where that little girl was in the backseat of her car with her family. That's military style, and literally these are the type of guns that these people are using, and those guns spray. Back in the '80s, it was one-on-one shooting, one-on-one. Now, someone could be 3 blocks away and literally just spray like a garden hose. And anyone can get caught up in a bullet, whether they are the intended target or not. Just this week, that Molette was talking about crime. Just this week, earlier this week, I had the killing where the 15-year-old kid was shot and killed at the Coachella concert last year.
Yes,
that trial is going on. That trial just completed. Today there was a hearing for the young girl who was killed down at the McDonald's over the sweet and sour sauce.
Yes,
exactly. The prosecutors upped the charges from second-degree murder to first-degree murder. In that case, even though the defense is saying that, it was self-defense. And then we also had the 19-year-old who was charged with fatally shooting Ariana Davis. I mean, my days in courts are filled with young people as victims. And that's what I'm noticing. It's not so much the 20 and 30-something-year-olds anymore. It's juveniles and young people who are the victims. Yeah. And that's what's so amazing to me.
Go ahead, Molette.
Yeah, like 75 juveniles shot this year. Those are the numbers. 14 of them at my last count who have died this year. 75 juveniles shot this year, 14 dead in the nation's capital. That is an unacceptable. One is too much. One too many, but when we're talking about children who are not living past the age of 14 and 16 years of age, many of them caught up in the crossfire of the wild west
of somebody else's bullet.
Mm-hmm. It is unbelievable. And where is we find these grieving families and loved ones, but where is the public outcry? Where is the marching in the streets that enough is enough? I don't know. Keith is out there on the street in terms of covering the beat. I'm hearing from the community when I talk to them in the aftermath of wanting hope brought back into their neighborhoods. But I'm not seeing what I believe we should see, which is absolute disgust that this is continuing to happen everywhere in the city. Yeah. Everywhere in the DMV, it seems.
On all 4 wards, that's correct.
202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. We are sitting at the Reporters Roundtable talking about some of the top stories of the week. If you have a comment or a question, give us a call. Lines are open all the way up until 8 o'clock. Let's go to Charles calling from D.C. Charles, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, concerning about what the topic is today, about the police shortage and what the mayor's not doing and anything else like that. And the curfew, it doesn't matter because these people are doing this day and evening. And about innocent people getting killed, that's a sad thing for us. And we as folks of the city, also we need to protest. But also, on the other hand, the police shortage and the mayor can't do nothing about it because this is happening every second, every minute, every day, regardless. Because when Captain Lanier was here, which he had the seatbelt check law thing in place, and the crackdown or checking all the things, crime went down a whole lot because it stopped a lot of crimes and caught a lot of people that were on the run and had committed crimes.
Charles,
Well,
thank
like-
you. Charles,
also-
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comment, Keith.
You know,
you were here covering when Kathleen Lanier
Right,
was here. So I would like to have your thoughts about what he's saying.
When you talk to individuals who, I talked to a lot of defense attorneys and a lot of people who talk about, their individual rights. I mean, stopping people, that's going to stop and frisk. When they were back to stopping individuals, pulling over cars over seatbelt violation, and then searching.
And jump out squad.
But you pull over a car under the guise of wearing your seatbelt, and then they commit a search because they feel they had probable cause for a search. That created a whole lot of individuals being locked up, whose rights were violated, according to a lot of defense attorneys who I talked to. Charles talked about that there's not enough police officers out on the streets. Well, how many times have we heard of these cases where individuals were shot and killed, and a police officer or a police cruiser was right down the street? They saw the shooting. Fatal shooting happened a few months ago on U Street. The officers were right there. That's why and these individuals don't care about cops being there. That is not a deterrent as it used to be. What could be a deterrent, we don't know yet. But more police officers, I don't know. I think I said this before last time I was on the show. A lot of senior detectives, homicide detectives, who knew individuals in the streets, they're the ones who are gone. So those individuals who know people who would say, okay, this is so-and-so, and this so-and-so is always on IG, posting up guns, bragging about this shooting and bragging about that shooting. Those detectives, those senior detectives, those are the ones who are gone. But Foot Patrol, those officers, I'm not sure how much of a deterrent those Foot Patrol officers really are when we're seeing individuals shot and killed literally in a block away from police officers who are posted.
Millette, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot about over the past couple of years is the effect that social media has had on street crime, where beefs, arguments, conflict that start on social media, and then they balloon when you walk out onto the streets. Those same people who are selling wolf tickets, old phrase, on social media, and then they come out and the wolves are biting Millette.
Yeah. This is a new day. We're old heads, you, me, and Keith. Social media didn't exist. It didn't exist for us, and so this is another factor in fighting this problem that does, in many cases, starts on social media or gets raised to a different level on social media, where young people are so brazen to show off their weapons on social media, where they are doing some extraordinarily stupid things, and then they are forced to make good on what they are showboating on social media because they have to prove that they are as bad as they are proclaiming to be. And so law enforcement, of course, I think they have to get on the ball in terms of being able to stop that. But for me, I really think this is a grassroots solution. We've got to go back to
the Pizzaholics,
disciplining our next door neighbor's kid. We've got to go back to really putting some more resources into programs, and we do have great programs in the city. We have great programs, but we got to get these kids in these programs, and we got to keep them in the programs as they get older, and we got to keep them away from the bad actors out there who are trying to get to the good kids who want to do right and want to make it in there, make it to 21 and 31 and beyond, and have a career and a life.
Millette, one thing you said is true, is that the pandemic. And people are saying, well, what's happening in the last couple of years? Well, remember, people were home during the pandemic, and all they had time to do was be on social media, and all these beefs started being traced back to 2020, and now that everybody's out, people are now like Millette said, they got to step up and show to those wolf tickets they sold and say, "Oh, well, I remember you said so and so back. Now you're out. Let's talk. What's up?" That's what's happening. A lot of these things started back in 2020 when everybody's on social media lockdown, and now it's mushroomed, and that's what a lot of Texans are saying.
I would say I agree with that, but the other thing, and this goes back to the whole reminiscing thing, and it's kind of a Back to the Future thing, where if two teenagers were fighting on the street and you had a responsible adult who would come out, stop the fight, and say, what's wrong with you all? What is this about? And having been a witness to this as a child, obviously, there's a lot of finger pointing. Well, he talked about my mama, okay, and countless times, one of these responsible adults would literally sit the two down and try to talk some maturity, giving them that teachable moment. The problem is, as we've seen in this surveillance video from the shooting yesterday at New Jersey and Pete near Dunbar, you had two groups come together. There was a fight, and then somebody pulled out a gun. And I think
that's it.
And why would you expect an adult today's age
to get into that?
No,
yes.
Any adult with any type of wisdom, especially when it's not their child, they will say, "Well, I'm not getting involved in that because back in the day, I can handle kids fighting.
Exactly.
Fist fight, I can't handle a Glock.
Gunfire.
Right?
Yeah. Let me go back to the phone lines, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. West calling from Maryland. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hi, my name's Wes, and hey, Keith, how are you?
How you doing, Wes?
All right. But you all, in a lot of ways, have hit the nail on the head with both what you've said and what Millette has said. But I remember when actions had consequences. Actions had consequences. We've got to make these young people, and we can reach some of them in school, but a lot of them are just stone knuckleheads that take every opportunity to skip school. It's not important to them. So through games, some of them, I don't care what the experts say about music and the games that these kids are playing that all glorify violence.
Yeah.
When you add it up, it's just like CTE, all these micro injuries. Well, all these micro bits of aggression and lack of respect and lack of concern for life. When these kids start to understand that, okay, a game is a game, music is music, you better leave that mess alone, or your little 15 or 17-year-old or 19-year-old butt is going to be in prison for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And stop mollycoddling these knuckleheads. And that's what they are. They're knuckleheads.
Yeah.
I wish I could clean it up and make it sound better. I'm not going to try to dress up a pig and call it a beauty queen.
Yeah.
It's ugly.
Wes, thank you so much. You do make an excellent point. Keith, real quick before the break, you had a thought.
One of the things that Wes was talking about, and this is true, there's a link between truancy that the city is not really dealing with. A lot of these kids are not in school.
Right.
And they have nothing but time on their hands. And we go back and talk about, well, kids have reverence for adults. Well, these kids aren't even revering their own family members, and because they're raising themselves.
Yeah. I need to take a break. When we come back, more at the Reporters Roundtable as we discuss some of the top stories of the day. Don't forget, you can hear every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast right on WHUR.com. And don't forget to download the 96.3 HD2 app on your smartphone and hear the program live in its entirety. If you're on the phone, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. That includes Vernon from DC. We're going to talk to you next. Lots more to talk about when we look at some of the other top stories of the day. John Mons is next with the original Quiet Storm on WHUR. We'll be back on WHUT TV and Sirius XM channel 141 in a few seconds.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contests. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators focus solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock, and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141 and WHUT TV. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Reporters Roundtable talking about some of the top stories of the week. My guests are Millette Green, anchor reporter for NBC-Washington, and Keith Alexander, reporter for the Washington Post. Lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. I know a lot of folks want to talk about that first story that we were discussing earlier, a crime in the district, and we are going to still take your phone calls about that. But we do have some other stories that I want to get to, some important stories. Comment on anything that we are talking about today, if you like. So, the government shut down. Right now, we are about 3 days away. There is infighting in the House GOP. The Senate is trying to do something about it. But as with all things on Capitol Hill, a snail's pace, a tortoise's pace.
And a lot of brick walls.
And a lot of brick walls, exactly. But the reality, Keith, is that we've been here before. The last time, 2019, it was actually over a wall. President Trump's wall funding. But the reality is, no matter what it's about, we have real people who will be impacted if this happens. WIC recipients, federal government workers, TSA workers, just people who work in parks, the gamut.
People who are applying for passports. And visas.
Gosh. And that's already slow.
And that's already because of the pandemic.
Yeah, you can right now. You can hang up your trip to Aruba if you don't. So, when are we, or how might we get past this? And I don't mean this situation, but get to the point where it's no longer a political football, and that lawmakers see this as important.
Well, what's interesting is that the cast of characters have changed since 2019. You have Kevin McCarthy. You have some different characters in place who are controlling things, and I think that's what people are now looking at. So, okay, how is this going to be different? Because different cast of characters coming up into the election year, so the timing of who's in play and the timing is really going to catch people off guard. I think when people are going to say, okay, so how is McCarthy and his supporters going to really put up more walls with this? Because there has been some movement, but it's McCarthy and some of his groupies are saying, no, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this does play out, given who is now in leadership and what they are pushing for.
Millette, how many of your friends out there in Prince George's County work for the federal government? All
Oh
of
my.
them, practically.
Yeah, I mean, a great deal. I mean, I come from a family of government workers. That's what we do here, right?
Right.
So we're talking about so many people that we know, so many people that, we work with who have family members who depend on their government paychecks, having a good government job, and these good government paychecks, and how things will slow down. Just today, NBC4 profiled a mom who is worried about feeding her children. I mean, this is real life stuff, while a handful of right-wing Republicans are holding up things and threatening Speaker McCarthy's speakership. You got lives hanging in the balance. And you talked about the last shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, 34 days.
Yes.
And so many people suffered. And the ripple effect, it's just not 1, 2, 3, snap. Oh, we've turned the lights back on. Your check is coming. This stuff is real life. I mean, Jose Andres had to open up his World Central Kitchen to help people who couldn't put food on their table.
Right.
So the frustration continues to grow, and millions of people and millions of contractors and millions of businesses downtown, and as Keith talked about, we're still reeling from the pandemic when so many people are not even back to their offices, collecting dust, businesses going out of business because there's nobody downtown as it is like there used to be.
Yeah.
This is a crisis in Washington, and it's not going to get any better.
And it's a crisis. I'm sorry, it's a crisis in Washington that's being played out by people who have really no connection to Washington.
No connection.
And don't even care
whatsoever.
about people in Washington.
That's a great point.
That's the point. I mean, that is the great point, because, of course, as we know, the lawmakers' checks will not stop.
Exactly.
You know,
They get paid.
yeah.
And their constituents, and back in California, right? Their constituents all across the country they're fine. It's people here in the DMV who are suffering.
Yeah. And, one of the other things that we saw back in 2019, even those people, as you said, Millette, with those good government jobs were struggling because the reality is, and obviously we're looking in the DMV, is that the cost of living in the DMV is disrespectfully high. And even those people who have great jobs, the reality is a lot of people are still living paycheck to paycheck. And as you said, Millette, that 34, 35 days, there was no secret sauce where on the 36th day your paycheck came. There were still delays, not to mention the government contractors, because for years and years and years, we've always heard those rumblings and grumblings from contractors were saying, well, gosh, it's taken 30 days or 60 days for me to get paid. Well, when there's a shutdown, it becomes much longer for them to get back.
And also we're now in October. We're coming right up on the holidays.
Yes.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, this, and higher fuel bills for heating. I mean, this is a really crunch time for this area.
Yeah, I just turned my heat on yesterday, as a matter of
Speaking of which.
Yes, absolutely. Let me go back to the phone lines, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Vernon calling from D.C. Vernon, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yes, good evening. I'm calling in reference to the violent crisis.
Go right ahead.
That's what it is. It's a crisis. I'm elated to be able to, be joyful about some things that were done this week. And we're beginning to nip it in the bud with, number one, the faith community came out. They're taking a stand, okay? Then we have the most valuable assets that we can use, and those are the ex-offenders who are coming out, these old heads who see this stuff, and they're out there. We need to get more of them involved out in the streets, because most of those young people will look up to one of them or know them, or they know their fathers or one of their relatives have been shot down or something like that. And then, and this is the part we got to begin to dialogue about where in the heck does a 14, 13-year-old get a weapon? Where are all these weapons coming from?
Well, let me say this, Vernon. Vernon, let me say this, and we've had this discussion on this program before. The incredulity that you were feeling is something that we all have felt, but the reality is it's obviously not that difficult to get a gun. And you said, 14 or 15-year-olds. We're talking, prepubescent children, boys, 12-year-olds who are carjacking, who are walking around with guns. So yes, the guns are here, as Keith spoke about earlier. We're not just talking about regular handguns. We're talking about automatic weapons, military-grade weapons. These things are happening. Are they being manufactured in the District of Columbia? There are no gun manufacturers in the District of Columbia, but they are coming from outside.
You know, when I was covering this trial, what jumped out at me.
And Vernon, thank you so much for your comment. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Vernon. Yeah, what jumped out at me when covering this trial of this Mochella killing was I'm hearing that, and I've seen this before, and it just dawned on me that back in the day, young people were always trying to get the next Air Jordans, right? The next Jordans. Well, who's got the next Jordans? Now is who's get the next clip? Who got the best gun? Who got the best ghost gun? And it's all about the style of gun. It's about the clip. Is the extended? How much of an extended clip are we talking about? It's no longer the Jordans. It is now the type of gun when they're now going on social media and posting and bragging about, as opposed to back in the day when you bragged about your sneakers and your kicks. Now these young people are bragging about the type of weapons they have.
Yeah. Let me go back to the phone lines, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Tyrone calling from D.C. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind? Tyrone, are you there? Tyrone, give me a call back. Want to go to one of our next topics. And I find this to be a rather bizarre story. This is the Travis King story, the American Army soldier who bolted across the demilitarized zone in South Korea into North Korea. He was, and I want to talk about the language, Millette, that we heard today. He was not released by North Korea. The language that was used was he was expelled by North Korea. He is now in U.S. custody. We still don't know why he ran across. He does obviously have a checkered past with his service.
Harold, this is a 23-year-old young man, Travis King, from Wisconsin. Yes, expelled. Basically, what does that say? I mean, what does it say? It says they had no use for him.
Exactly.
He was he was of low value to North Korea. There was nothing that North Korea could get in return, any concessions from Washington. That's how he was viewed. And he was basically a low-ranking serviceman. This is a private. There was no real value. I mean, that's just the bottom line here. And the Biden administration insisted, of course, it provided no concessions. So what you will see is he is now in U.S. custody. There will be no fanfare for him coming home. There will be no parade. He's going to face possible charges, obviously. He went AWOL.
Yeah.
And what we heard was at the beginning of all of this, when all of this happened, and it took us by surprise that a black man would cross a heavily fortified border and go into North Korea, basically saying that he was not being treated well in the U.S. Army. That is what the claim is.
And isn't that amazing? He would rather go to North Korea than to stay in the U.S. Army.
Exactly.
Right. What does that say?
Yeah, I just think that story is just.
I want to sit down with this brother. I want to know who gets that exclusive.
That's
right.
I think
so
it's
many
bizarre.
Questions. There's so many questions we may never get the answers to.
And it's likely he will, at minimal, be dishonorably discharged.
Uh-huh.
But Millette, I think you summed it up perfectly. They saw no value, and so.
But I also wonder about his state of mind. That really jumped out at me.
Absolutely.
That this brother, there's something going on mentally in him that he would just. He's also at that age, right? Between 18 and 23, that's when among black men, that's when mental illness kicks in, and he's also right at that age. So I'm wondering what he was also wrestling with as well.
Yeah, there will definitely have to be a mental health evaluation, obviously, to get to the bottom of what is going on and to get more answers.
Yeah. Real quick, back to the phone lines, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Tyrone calling from D.C. Thanks for calling. You called back. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. Go right ahead.
My name is Tyrone Jones. I've been a resident in Washington, D.C. my entire life. I just came home from incarceration after 22 years.
Welcome home.
I've been in and out of jail since I was 10. Listen to me. You want to know the answer and how to change and correct what's going on? The first thing you need to do is we all need to respect the Constitution. We need to read it and learn it and understand it. Second, we need to correct it and explain the definitive reason of Lady Justice and equal it out balancedly across the world, the nation, first and foremost, before change can be enacted.
So, Tyrone, I got to stop you there. I agree. But I can't imagine anyone having that conversation with a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, or 12-year-old who is already literally standing at the precipice of being claimed by the streets.
Let me just follow real quick. Tyrone, you said since you've been 10 years old, you've been in the system. What did you do at 10 years old that led you to your first arrest?
This how I went. I was late for school. My mother told me to go to school. I was late. She don't even know this to this day. So I was late. I missed my school bus. I was going to school in Landover, Maryland. I went outside, so I went to go. I needed a ride. I said, well, I'm going to go steal me a car to get to school. This how God works and how good God is. He sent me outside to go steal that car, and I got caught by a federal officer.
So let me say, okay, Tyrone, I don't have a lot of time. I got to stop you. And I know it was 22 years ago. But what on earth would possess you at 10 years old because you were late getting to school, that you would steal a car? I mean, help me with that, because
I'm gonna help you understand.
Yeah, real quick, because that doesn't. There have been times when I was a kid and I was, when I was late to school, I would turn
around and go back home.
I'd go back home.
This is the disconnect.
Okay, help me with that.
This is the disconnect. Us parents around the world, we're not paying attention enough to these kids.
Right, but hold on, Tyrone. Let me listen, because I don't. Why would you steal a car to get to school?
Let me tell you what happened.
I mean, I only have a little bit of time. What happened?
I was very fast in advance, and I was trying to be grown. And then that fastness and that grownness, I made a bad decision. And that's what made me do it.
Did you have other friends at that age who were doing that? Did you hang out with boys and even females, girls?
Everybody in my environment was doing it.
That okay.
Okay.
So that's
okay.
what it was.
There you go. Okay. Because I like I said, Keith said it. I said it. We know Millette was never late to school, but I know. Yeah, there were times when I missed the bus, and there may have been other parents in the community who were either going to take us, or I went back home.
Or start walking.
But he also said something that was very interesting that goes back to the point I made early on, which is he said it was his environment. Everyone in his environment at that time was doing the same thing.
Yeah, he buried the lead
so
there.
We have
Yes.
got to put these young people. He was 10 years old when he made a decision that changed the trajectory of his life. So we've got to put these young people at an early age in an environment that is positive, that is upward mobile, that they don't have a chance to get out of to hang around with young people or riffraff that's going to take them down a wrong path.
But also,
that's what we have to do. We got to save them when they're young, and they still listen to us, and we still have them in our grips and in our arms.
But parents also need to know who their kids are hanging with. And I think that's also a problem. Nowadays, these parents do not know the backgrounds of the young people that their kids are hanging with.
Or their parents.
Backgrounds, and sometimes the parents are the ones also get caught up in that lifestyle.
My mom knew everything about all my friends and their parents as well.
Exactly. Tyrone, like I said, welcome home. I
welcome home, Tyrone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me go to Charles calling from Virginia. Charles, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hi, I have a comment. I was looking at your program here.
Well, thank you.
And I have a comment about the crime that's going on in D.C., especially on the borderline of Maryland. I tell you, it's been years going on in D.C. Not just first started. You have to, but if you can consider looking at crime in D.C., even solving crime, you have to look at the young police officers that you're bringing from out of town, from Jersey, New York, down Atlanta, out of town.
Montana, West Virginia. These very red states, yes.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. The crime in D.C., you focus so much on the kids, but you're not focusing on the police department that bring the crime, the drugs, the guns, and all that, and the gangs. You know, if you look at the gangs real closely, I'm a police officer myself. If you look at the gangs real closely, you'll see what part the police plays in the gangs, and you'll see what parts of the police play in the drug business in the city and how the gangs operate. No one wants to take time, but they want to blame these black kids for something that's caused by grown-ups.
So let me ask you this real quick. What role? Be specific. What exactly are you saying?
I'm saying if you are looking to solve crime in D.C. and Maryland, you have to look at the police department. This is what I'm saying. No one wants to hear that because, you know, you look at the kids, it's easy to put things on the kids. Don't know kids bring drugs in. Don't know kids make guns. Don't know kids start gangs.
Are you saying that police officers are helping these kids and supplying them with weapons and drugs? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry to say that, and I hope you don't spread my name around. I'm a police officer. Yes, I am. I'm saying the police runs the gangs in D.C. and Maryland. The police runs the guns in D.C. and Maryland. You can't even, not in D.C., sell a piece of pussy without police knowing about it.
Now, Charles, thank you for that. I will say my gracious, that is an eye-popping allegation, Millette, that police officers are supplying these young people with guns and drugs, and I'm not saying that all police officers are perfect, but
that's the first I've heard of this.
But that's an eye-popping allegation, just out of the blue.
Obviously, you know, the caller said he was a law enforcement officer.
Right.
If we are to believe that, I mean, obviously he knows something that we don't know. But we have reported, Keith has reported, we've reported on department heads, sheriffs, and the like being part of some kind of criminal enterprise. I think if was it the Charles County Sheriff who was arrested in a gun in a gun controversy.
Or you're talking about the
it's
Frederick County Sheriff.
Frederick County.
Frederick
Sheriff,
County. Yes, Frederick
Thank
County.
You for that.
Yes.
I mean, so we know that there are bad actors in law enforcement, not the whole department.
Right,
we
exactly.
know that there are bad actors at work in various levels to contribute to the problem that we're seeing on the street. It is not a one-solved solution issue. We've got to target this problem from different ways and angles to really save our children. That's what I'm most concerned about. What's the future going to look like for D.C. young people who are growing up or not growing up because their lives are cut short?
Yeah. Well, I would just real quick, as someone who covers D.C. police officers and I've covered cases involving sexual assault, police abuse. I have yet to see any cases involving officers who are involved in illegal gun and drug trade. I'm not saying they don't exist. I just have yet to see them. And if anyone out there knows of any cases, please contact me because I am very intrigued by this comment in this statement.
I want to move to this next issue, and this is something else I'm really not surprised about. That facial recognition is a problem for people of color, particularly black people, and that there is a lawsuit out of Atlanta where this man is suing over the use of facial technology by a sheriff's detective. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's out of Louisiana. He was arrested for crimes that he did not commit. But you know, Keith, I must say, when this technology first came out, when it was being used in the years after 9/11, and I remember a lot of the
American civil liberties. You know?
Yeah, the news reports. I'm just going to, this technology is probably created by people who don't care about black people, or not care, but not think about black people when they're just, everybody's the same. But we realize that everyone is not the same.
And now we'll add not only facial technology, but also recognition, but also now AI. And I'm just curious how now AI is going to play with this whole technology, because now we're taking it to a 21st century level that we haven't even thought about. And I heard, you agree with me on that. It's like we're curious as to what role AI is going to now play in this whole technology. It's going to take it to a whole different level. And people are concerned now. Just wait for a few more years. Mark my words, we'll be talking about this more in depth moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, it just scares me. I mean, the thought of this, it's a fact that it has misidentified people of color at a higher rate, and more often women.
Yes.
Less accurate with darker skinned people, especially women. And this is used in policing.
Prosecutors all the time.
Used, and, when we try to identify protesters, this is some scary stuff. And then Keith injected AI into this, which is add to the scariness of this and the impact on people of color, and how are we supposed to function? I am going to be living in fear. It's a threat to my mental health. The thought of constantly being watched and constantly being watched as a criminal, is somebody perceiving me as a criminal? I still go into high-end department stores and have people follow me around. That happened just this week.
Well, they wanted your autograph and all that. That's what that was. They just wanted your autograph.
No, they didn't. I wish it were the case.
Yeah.
Sadly, it is still a reality for many of us.
And also, it's the capturing. It's not just the recognition. It's the capturing that our recognition is being captured and stored in databases out there. That also what's really concerning, is that they are holding onto these images for such a time that they think they need for a charge or for an arrest or for a suspect or whatever. But these images are being captured and stored in databases around the country.
I've got two more stories I really need to get to in these last few minutes. One of the other stories, really troubling, this high school student out of Texas, Daryl George, suspended twice for his locks hairstyle. And, Millette, the thing that I think is just fascinating to me is that Texas has the Crown Act, has had the Crown Act since May. This just happened this new school semester. This is so troubling to me.
We're still talking about Texas.
Yes.
And we're talking about a young man. I mean, there's a bigger picture, and then there's the smaller picture. There's a 17-year-old, Daryl George, who is in school suspension. He is not getting an education with this experience. His family is dug in. They are not wealthy people. They have lawsuits going and all of that. And the bigger picture is we are still dealing with the way in which we wear our hair is a problem for other people. Where we have to satisfy someone else. And that's the bottom line. Our hair is a threat.
Yeah.
Our hair is a threat.
Keith, real quick, some thoughts about that?
I might be on the other side of this because there's a policy in place, a rule in place.
But you have curly, wavy hair.
But there is a policy in place in the school system that the hair cannot, if it's let down, it can't be over the collar. It can't be below down to the eyebrows. They have that in place, and so if that has been in place and those are the rules, my question is, okay, so what are you doing here? You knew what the rules were.
But does that supersede the state law that was signed in May?
The Crown Act. And in this particular case, this young man wears his hair up.
Right.
So it's not falling below his below whatever
before the collar, right? But if he was to take it down, it would be below the collar. All I'm just saying that this has been on the books for a while in that school system, and yes, there is a law, state law. So I think what's happening, my heart goes out to this kid because I'm wondering if he is unfortunately being put into a position with lawyers to be a martyr for this cause, and that's what really concerns me more than anything else.
Definitely a lesson for everyone as we look at this. We'll see him in law school in a couple of years. I guarantee you that.
At Howard, HU.
At Howard, probably exactly. Real quick, okay. McDonald's starting next month is going to serve Mambo sauce. They spell
is it Mambo or Mambo?
Yeah, but so I said Mambo because it's spelled Mambo, but the Mambo, the original Mambo is spelled M-U-M.
Right.
They spell it M-A-M. So, and I had a friend of mine call me today. She's not happy about it. She said it's cultural appropriation. Millette, what is it?
I'm a native Washingtonian. I grew up on chicken wings and Mambo sauce at the corner store. Okay.
Okay.
And
corner store.
Salt, pepper, ketchup.
Real quick, Keith, what do you think?
I'm all in favor of it because it does give recognition and put DC recipe on the map.
Yeah, okay.
We control the narrative.
All right.
As long as McDonald's owns up to it and cites that this is homage to DC.
Let us hope so. Look, I got to get out of here. Millette Green, Keith Alexander, thank you both for spending some time with us. That is the Daily Drum on WHUR and WHUT and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.